Yeah, I think the question raises two very key elements. As we have almost been conditioned to review the situation as some terrible squabble that happened between ourselves when Mother England wasn't watching, and that the only claim to be laid against the British state is that of neglect of troublesome children. And they didn't deal with us sternly enough when we were misbehaving by poking fun at each other, getting into rows, and finally coming to blows and guns at each other. And that's now almost universally accepted in the discussion that was the problem of the British state. And I think that's the first thing that has to be challenged, because at the very core of democracy is that the government is supposed to be, and is charged with, and is paid to, that's what people pay their taxes and things for, paid to provide good, equal, fair, just government. So the people who were the government, I mean, there weren't two states here. There was only the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And the local administration, which is now an assembly, at that point was the Stormont government. But it was at all times answerable to, not parallel with, and not independent of. It was answerable to the British government. And the legal and constitutional, inasmuch as a monarchy has a constitution, the legal and constitutional responsibility for the well-being of every person in Northern Ireland as a citizen of that state, whether they wanted to be or not, didn't matter. That's what they were. And the duty of care and the duty of fairness, the duty of equality, lay with the sovereign government. So the nature of the British state and its attitude to those of its citizens, willing or unwilling, in this part of their state is a key factor. And therefore key responsibility for allowing this state to fester from partition until it exploded lies with nobody other than successive British governments. How the people then beneath that responded to it is another question that we can examine. But the key responsibility lies with, and the key situation to be examined, is why the British government, in part of the United Kingdom, allowed the situation to develop that developed here. Why did they allow a paramilitary police force to operate almost at will? Why did they allow one political party representing a particular majority, just a particular majority, have essentially one party rule from partition until the administration fell? That's what happened. We had a one-party state until the administration itself collapsed. And then in the context of that, to ask about violence, I was listening to Patricia. Again, we have to look at that overall and strategic question, not who threw the first stone, who fired the first shot, and where were all the nice people when it happened. Too late for that question. The core question is whether, in fact, the existence of the state was itself a violation of democracy. That question needs to be looked at. People have different views. But violence comes from violation. And violence is what we all consider is what our opponents did. But there is act and there is omission. There is overt and there is covert. The violence of the poverty, that's real pain. The violence of the poverty that was inflicted on people. The violence of the human indignity, of unemployment and discrimination that was visited on people. Just go down to to Tiger Bay, did you see in the village, the old people still in the 21st century with a new assembly, tottering out in their slippers to the outside toilet in the middle of the night. But that's not violence, because the only person that's getting hurt there is an old man in his slippers, and the pain doesn't show, and the marks can't be seen. But, so we first of all define violence as what our opponents do, and it's that degree of unacceptable physical behaviour that is worse than what we do ourselves. This state was born in violence. It was maintained in violence of every conceivable description and definition of violence. The history of this country is one of violence and war, and the British Empire was built on nothing else. When the row started, who expected somebody to have an intellectual discussion on the matter? We were reared in it, we were steeped in it, the empire was built on it, all our Christian beliefs glorify sacrifice, and we want to ask ourselves the question, who started the war? Grow up.